Anybody else want to?
Thank you very much. I know.
Everybody ready then?
Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon everybody, welcome to Cabinet this afternoon. Welcome to anybody who's watching in. Just to introduce ourselves, I'm Peter Fox, Leader of the Council. I'll ask Cabinet members and other listening members to introduce themselves.
Bob Greening, Deputy Leader.
Phil Murphy, Cabinet Member for Resources.
Paul Jordan, Cabinet Member for Governance.
Jane Pratt, Cabinet Member for Infrastructure and Neighbourhood Services.
Richard John, Cabinet Member for Children, Young People and Mon Life.
Sarah Jones, Cabinet Member for Social Justice and Community Development.
Penny Jones, Cabinet Member for Social Services, Health and Safeguarding.
Frances Taylor, Leader of the Independent Group.
And can I welcome Councillor Sheila Woodhouse and Councillor Alan Davis as well. And we're joined by a variety of officers. Welcome everybody. Perhaps you could introduce yourselves if you're asked to contribute. Can I welcome Sheila? Sheila Parker standing in from Matt Phillips today. Matt's on holiday, I believe. So good to see you, Sheila. Okay, right. Let's move on. No, let's. We haven't got any. Oh, we've got an item missing off the agenda. Oh no, hang on. There we go. That's fine. It's declarations of interest. My fault. Sorry. Anybody got any declarations of interest? No. If you do find one, any members, that is, not just a cabinet, any members in the room. If you find one, can you declare it verbally and then fill in a performer as and when? Okay. Right, so we'll move on to the first item on the agenda then, and that is an investment proposal for Caldecott Leisure Centre. Councillor Richard John.
Thank you very much, Leader. Well, I was really pleased to be able to spend some time at Caldecott Leisure Centre this morning. It's a very popular leisure centre. We've got some really hard-working staff who do fantastic work in the local community. Not just supporting the physical well-being of the local population, but also it's really important in terms of emotional well-being and mental health. So they were telling me about some of the customers who use that leisure centre and how some people are referred to the leisure centre by from the GP surgery just round the corner, and the benefits that some of those patients have experienced in terms of their mobility. There are some customers at that leisure centre who perhaps went in for the first time a year or so ago, went in with perhaps they were struggling with their mobility, and 12 months on, their quality of life has improved exponentially because of the experiences they've had in that leisure centre. So I think we can be really proud in the county of the leisure services we provide. But I think as you look around Caldecott Leisure Centre, you can see it does feel a bit dated, a bit tired in places. This was a leisure centre that opened in 1973. It's still got an awful lot going for it. As I say, it's very popular. It's got an L-shaped swimming pool, which means that the shallow end is particularly long. So that's really popular with families, and it's really useful for children's swimming lessons, which are oversubscribed at the centre. But we feel that there's additional demand in the local community for leisure services, given the significant investment we've made in the 21st Century School next door. We feel that we ought to upgrade the leisure centre to complement that education, health and well-being campus. So we're looking today at a sum of £127,500 for some feasibility work to give us cost confidence on a major piece of renovation work on that leisure centre, which would be able to install additional facilities similar to the enhanced offer we've now got in Monmouth. So we'd be looking at moving the cafe downstairs so it's much more open, much more accessible, introducing a viewing area for the swimming pool so that parents can watch their children having swimming lessons. We'd be looking at enhancing the gym facilities and equipment, new changing facilities, introducing spa facilities to the leisure centre, and also soft play. We'd also be looking at an outdoor changing area to enable people to maximise the benefits of that 3G pitch. So this would be a significant investment in the leisure facilities in the Caldecott area, complementing what we delivered very recently in Monmouth. Since Monmouth Leisure Centre reopened a few months ago, memberships there have trebled, demonstrating that if you invest in leisure facilities, there is demand out there to make use of them. I think as a local authority, we have we've maintained our leisure facilities very effectively. I know some councils, given the very tight settlements that are being handed down from the Welsh Government year on year, I think we've done very well to protect our leisure services, but actually we're looking at enhancing them, and I think that's a real strength, given that we're one of the smaller local authorities. I think that's something we can be really proud of. So as I say, we've got 4 leisure centres. Until Monmouth was renovated very recently, Chepstow was the leisure centre that was improved most recently. So in the last 15 years, there was a multi-million-pound investment in the renovation of Chepstow Leisure Centre. But we feel that Caldecott is in need of a refresh, of some new facilities, some significant investment, and today I'm recommending to Cabinet that we approve this this 6-figure sum to undertake the feasibility study to be able to give us confidence to make an informed decision as to whether we progress with that multi-million-pound investment and make this leisure centre fit for the 21st century.
Thank you, Richard. Well, I'm sure we'll all want to support this. I mean, I'm a member of that leisure centre. I did go twice last week. There was a fair gap between the period I went before, I have to say. But it is a wonderful facility, even in its current, you know,
very popular,
quite aged state. It's still very popular and a big demand. And I think the key thing we've got to also be mindful of is the growth, which is already building around the area of Caldecott and the Sevenside area. You know, we see new estates going up as we speak now in Hundy, Mega Hundy, and you know, as the things roll out in my own area as well through you know, Studbrook, and you know, the growing population is going to be a growing need for leisure services, and I think the expectation of people nowadays is clearly they want more, and that's, I suppose that's evidenced by what we've seen in Monmouth with that trebling of if you've got the offer right, there's people who want it. So you know, absolutely, with hindsight, I suppose we should have had a deeper think around this when we were doing the school, perhaps. I don't know, there's no point looking backwards now, but clearly we do need to do something to complement that site. We'll have one of the, well, it'd be a fantastic provision there with the school, and that needs to be done, and hopefully we can roll out that same thing right across the county in due course.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, hindsight is a wonderful thing, and I suppose one of the, you know, if there were a downside of having one of the newest technology packed schools in the country, it's that now the leisure centre looks like the poor relation next to the school. So hopefully this will lead to us being able to put that right.
Yeah. Okay, colleagues.
Yeah.
Right.
Phil, question.
Paul and Phil.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Go first. Shall I go first?
Yeah, go on.
Right. Assuming that Cabinet approves this recommendation, can the officer give us some indication as to the timescale for the preparation of this report?
Of the detailed report, when we would consider
the feasibility study.
So I would be hopeful that we would be able to make an informed decision as to whether we progress with the redevelopment, but before Christmas.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask a similar question. There's definitely a positive buzz around the area. People have got, you know, this has got out, and the figures got out, and everybody, oh, they're going to spend 5 or 6 million. Isn't that great? And you know, so there is definitely an appetite being generated there. The only question that comes to all of the time is sort of what sort of time scale are we looking at, and that might be a little bit more difficult to say, but if we had some sort of indication as to the, you know, the time it would take to do it once a decision was made, I think people would be a lot happier, because they say they want to see this happening now.
Yeah, I would anticipate us being in a position to make an informed decision as to whether we progress with this before the end of the year, and I would hope to see work begin the middle of next year, and I would anticipate that taking just under a year to completely refit the leisure centre. So perhaps 10 months or so.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we wouldn't have any major issues with redigging a swimming pool or anything like that, wouldn't it? You know,
The swimming pool is excellent. It's as I say, it's an L shape, which is really good, because it means that you've got quite an extended shallow end.
Yeah.
So this morning there was a packed swimming lesson taking place while I was there, and they were able to use that bottom bit of the L. So you still had you still have your full lanes, but that bottom bit of the L could be used for the swimming lessons. That was really useful. So it's a good pool, but I think the area around the pool just needs modernising a bit.
Penny?
I would just like to point out that I welcome this emphasis on the well-being of all generations, because it has such a positive knock-on effect for social services and health as a whole. So, and it's all part of the act. So, well done. I'm all for it.
Sorry?
Exactly the point I was going to make. It's just really good to hear you mention emotional and mental well-being as well as physical well-being, because whilst it's not about this report or this feasibility study, I hope that any future asset here will very much link into the wider community, the work of people like Fred Weston and others around community conversations and how we use a physical asset like this to improve the mental well-being of our communities. So it's good to hear you mention that.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point from Penny and Sarah, because I really do think that, given the quite extensive leisure offer, I think, to be fair, we have in this local authority, given that we've got 4 leisure centres, we have a fantastic leisure offer that we should be really proud of, and I think we're saving the NHS an absolute fortune, particularly with the strong relationship that our leisure centres now have with GP surgeries locally, and the fact that GPs are actually referring some of their patients to leisure centres for their not just for their physical well-being and their mobility, but for their emotional well-being and tackling loneliness as well. You know, there are people. You know, there was a spin class going on this morning, and there were people there who were. You know, that class was full, and I think it's fantastic that people who perhaps might otherwise be lonely or isolated in the community are able to go out and socialise. And in terms of extending people's lives, improving quality of life, I really do think that our leisure centres are saving the NHS an awful lot of money. And I'd say to the Welsh Government that preventative agenda is really important. You know, I appreciate they want to put money into the NHS, but if you put more money into prevention and some of the services that we can offer as a local authority, you will save much more money later on, and also improve people's quality of life.
Absolutely.
Well, actually, it's all been said now, but I just welcome this. I think we have already seen good investment in the town, in the school. We also will be reinvesting in the redevelopment of the town centre site, and this just complements it all. And I think that Caldicot will be getting a lot of good services, improved services, and we've seen the way that it's made such a difference having in Monmouth. The leisure centre has really been a huge benefit for that town, and I'm sure that this will do the same thing for Caldicot. Thoroughly to be welcomed, but I'd really like to see it as soon as we possibly can.
Can I take this opportunity while we're talking about leisure centres, just to just pay tribute to the staff who work in them. I mean, you can go into Caldicot at 6:30 or 6:45, so they're earlier than that, you know, and they are brilliant. And you know, if you need help within the gym, as I do, you know, their advice, they're just so professional. And I think one of the barriers to get over the loneliness and get people into this is that first break in the ice, that first day when you go for induction and you need to be there with lots of people who look very professional and they're doing all the stuff, you know. And, you know, I think that's a bit of something we need to think about. How do you encourage people to go in? And the staff are so friendly, if you just help people realise that it's actually not a difficult experience going and joining the gym and seeing what's on offer. But I have to say, my experience is, I think they're wonderful. Okay, so we're going to move to the recommendations in 2.1 and 2.2, and I think Rich, you've outlined that the Cabinet approved the sum of 127,598 to facilitate feasibility study, so cost certainty and business planning can be developed for the refurbishment of Caldecott Leisure Centre. Initial costs will be met from a drawdown of available capital receipts, so there will be no initial impact on the revenue budget of the council. And 2.2, the Cabinet received a further report at the conclusion of the study when it will be asked to consider whether the programme proceeds or not. I didn't come to Ian. Is there anything you wanted to?
I think it's all been said. I think it's very positive that there's an opportunity to get cost certainty and then bring it back.
Okay, great. So those are recommendations. All in favour? Okay, thank you very much. That's carried. Thanks. Anybody else who's in here for that report? Right. Okay, let's move on to the next report, and that is the draft apprentice and graduate and intern strategy. Phil.
Yes, thank you, Leader. And the purpose of this report is to present that strategy, and it's really to informing everybody of the proposal to create an AGI, as we call it, coordinator post, to oversee the implementation of that strategy. The council doesn't have a current strategy in place really to develop and support apprenticeships, graduate jobs and internships across the local authority. So there's a need being identified for that coordination role in delivering on the priorities of those particular areas and try to get people into work. The variety of apprenticeship posts within the council at present is limited and tended to be in the field of business administration, IT and teaching assistants. So expanding training opportunities and the range of higher level qualifications will support the current and future skills needs and succession planning. This is all part of a national approach in creating apprenticeship, graduate and internship posts, upskilling the existing workforce, and aligns with the Welsh Government's employability plan. So responding to the current and future skills gap and providing a personalised approach to employability support should be quite a valuable service going forward. So the strategy will develop new and existing partnerships with key stakeholders. We already do a lot through Apprentice, the shared apprenticeship scheme. Cardiff Capital Region comes into it, training providers and the business community. So we're going to be promoting regional training and employment opportunities. So this is really a role which pulls all of the various strands together, does a lot of mentoring and generally supports people in trying to get into the workplace. So good scheme, I think, Leader.
Okay. Hannah, welcome. Is there anything you want to add to?
No, it's just that obviously we feel there's a need for the post, need for the strategy. We've looked at all skills gaps across the authority, we're looking at the wider arena with the Cardiff Capital Region. So all really positive, and we would hope that you would support the strategy and the implementation plan and the vision of the post. Really.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Hannah. Yeah. Jane.
I fully support this. I think we need a coordinated strategic approach, and I think it will give valuable experiences to these people, students and graduates, and I think it'll also benefit the council, and hopefully once they've worked here and liked it, it'll encourage them to come back in the future, which we want to try and keep our gifted young people in Monmouthshire. So I think it's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I welcome it too, but it's not only academically gifted young people that we're looking after here. We're giving the opportunity for everybody, whether it's vocational or academic, and I think that's a really important step forward, and I really welcome it that Monmouthshire should do this, and hopefully it'll be very successful.
Okay, Sarah?
Yeah, I just wondered how much of this post, it's a coordination post, which is great and very much needed, I agree. But how much is it about outward looking? So in terms of future scoping the sort of skills that we're going to need for the future, and how apprenticeships, interns and graduate placements can meet that demand, and how potentially we're liaising with those external stakeholders, with regional skills partnerships, those bodies that prioritise where funding goes for apprenticeships currently. How much are we going? Does this role engage with those sort of bodies? Because we all know we're paying huge amounts of money into an apprenticeship levy as an organisation, and it's about engaging with those external bodies. So maybe that's happening already, but does it form part of this role?
What we felt is that is happening already, but having invested through the post would make that more consistent and more of a better offer really, because we do that as part of our wider youth enterprise stream. But I think having that point of contact for the apprentice graduate and having that point of contact for that engagement with our businesses in the wider region as well is really important going forward.
Okay. So it's just complementing but also amplifying the work that we're already doing, which
and
is really
looking at some added value working across. We've had conversations with University of South Wales, they come back to us, and it's not just around what their offer is for interns, it's that a wider offer in terms of upskilling existing staff and looking at some of the blue sky and strategic thinking they offer to other organisations. Just bringing a lot to the table really. So
Yeah, and can I just come out quickly and just say that the pastoral care will be an absolutely integral part of all this, and that takes quite a lot of time, but it's nice to have somebody who's going to have a consistent approach.
I think that's why we wanted it to sit with us, because that's what we do as our day-to-day business as well.
Yeah.
No, I think we welcome this, and it's great. We have a strategy around this. We've got to think of our own succession planning within the organisation. If we treat people well and we nurture them and help them get on, they may well want to, as you said, Jane, want to stay and work with us in Monmouthshire. So, yeah, no, fine. Anybody else want to say anything? Okay, the recommendation is then the Cabinet approves the draft apprenticeship, graduate and intern strategy, which you'll find at Appendix 3. All in favour of that? Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. Okay, take the next report then. This is to establish a Monmouthshire MedTech, MMT. And this is asking us to commit to growing the medical technology sector in Monmouthshire, and to demonstrate this commitment through the establishment of Monmouthshire MedTech, and to do that then as a pilot for 9 months. In November, the investment committee considered a proposition to establish this body, this Monmouthshire MedTech, following a direct approach from Capital Kinetics. MMT, that's what we'll be abbreviated to, seeks to build an incubator facility with business support capability focused entirely on companies in the diagnostic and devices sector of medical technology, a real growth area, and an area which could really move forward in this part of the region, and obviously Monmouthshire, but as part of the city region. M&T would encourage tech companies in the healthcare and healthcare technology space to relocate to Monmouthshire. Capital Kinetics, the people who approached us and who would be our partner, they are a London-based corporate finance advisor and registered private equity house with a particular presence and interest in the meditech sector, and they have links with a number of key target companies that may be suitable and aligned to the objectives of MMT, as I pointed out. And so it's a real opportunity actually to have a company like Capital Kinetics approaching us and wanting to work with us. And I mean, that's a great opportunity because it absolutely aligns with what we're all about in Monmouthshire, creating opportunities, and especially in this innovative area. You'll see in 3.4 there's we can actually do this. We can move ahead quite legitimately in doing all of this. And Monmouthshire is now widely recognised as having one of the most vibrant local economies in Wales, with the capital city region, right in the capital city region. We've got the M4 tolls gone. It's a real area of growth, and you'll see listed in 3.5 some of those areas why Monmouthshire is desirable, and we know all of those things. But we are at that gateway to Wales. We're at the gateway to the Cardiff capital region. We have some of the fantastic social capital. We have many companies who wanted to come and locate around us. Clearly, we're a desirable place for people to locate to, and as an organisation for us to work with. Since November, our officers have been working with Capital Kinetics informally to establish the thinking around the MMT, and for it to be based in Innovation House in Mega. We have that building there, which we decanted many of our own staff back to this place, and that is a building we wholly own, which we can utilise for commercial purposes. Absolutely aligns well with this concept. There will be a memorandum of understanding drawn up between ourselves and Capital Kinetics, obviously, but just stress again, this is a pilot for 9 months. There will be a steering group, a steering group has already been established to assist the development of the pilot arrangement, and that will consist of key officers of the organisation and members from Capital Kinetics as well. And they're not a decision-making body. They're a group who will make recommendation back to our investment committee, and the investment committee would make a decision ultimately to go forward. And we know that we have representation on the investment committee from all groups. The roles of MMT and what's expected of Capital Kinetics are identified in 3.12 and 3.13. I'm not going to read through all of those, but there would be an expectation for us to agree to establish an interest-bearing loan pool in around 100,000 to assist target companies where they are in a pre-revenue stage of development. All loans being repayable with interest at the earlier of 1 year from the entry to MMT, or at a point of a successful funding round. We're talking of small loans, nothing more than up to £25,000. Also within this, and you'll see in the recommendation, there is a need for us to agree a one-off development fee of £50,000 with Capital Kinetics to manage and establish all of the investment fund and everything around that. And again, the detail of this is all highlighted in the report. You'll also see background on Capital Kinetics in 3.14 and the importance of the real opportunity we have of having these people working closely with us, and on what they can bring to the table is outlined in 3.15. So I'll just take us back to the recommendations, because that really captures it all of what we've been asked for today. And that is that we approve funding from reserves to take forward a pilot arrangement to include then £50,000 to establish the MMT support office, which is based in Innovation House, and then a capability for the investment committee to authorise secured interest-bearing loans of up to £25,000 to pre-revenue stage target companies who locate to MMT. So that's an extra requirement that we need to give to the investment committee. And then the capability for the investment committee to make investments in target companies that come through that MMT where appropriate. And then finally, as I talked about earlier, the 50k one-off fee to the council's MMT partner. And those are the recommendations. Colleagues, anybody want to talk to this? Bob?
Yeah, I very much welcome this report and these proposals. If you'd been sat around this table maybe 20 years ago, nothing like this would have ever come up, because we were entirely funded by the public purse through government. But we know that that purse has been running dry over the last few years. And if we are to achieve the objectives which we want for this county, we have to look at different ways of doing so. And one of the objectives which we must have is to be able to offer good opportunities for our young people. New jobs in new technology companies, this is where we should be working. And I regard this as a pump priming exercise. This is an opportunity to bring in these medtech businesses into an area like Monmouthshire. And if you don't prime the pump, you won't get the water to flow. And we know that medtech businesses, we know that all high-tech modern businesses cluster around each other. You've only got to look at the success of Silicon Valley to see that. So the opportunity here to be able to bring a medtech cluster into this part of South East Wales is something which is a big prize to go for. And what we're being asked here to do is a very modest investment. Let's be honest, there's no guarantees to this. If it'd been guaranteed, somebody else would have done it a long time ago. But this has been very carefully considered over not just months, over the last year or so. And it comes to us now with the consideration of a lot of work having been done up to now. So I'm very happy to support this moving forward. And I hope that we'll be able to add value to what the offering that we have in Monmouthshire as a result of this pump priming that we're about to undertake.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. And also, what I didn't mention earlier is this is absolutely aligned to the priorities of the Cardiff Capital Region as well, as it's moving ahead in developing through some of the major companies which are highlighted in the report. Monmouthshire-based companies taking forward applications to with support from City Region to move this thinking forward on a regional platform, and we'd be absolutely in sync and in line with those aspirations. I mean, and the aspirations for all of you know, for your city deal is creating, you know, real opportunities, economic opportunities for the region, creating good quality jobs so we can keep our people living and working locally. And you know, this starts putting, you know, some more meat around that goal, and that's what we're about. And that's what we've always been around, being an enabling council, a place where we do things a little differently, but we want to help people get on. Any further points?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Bob picked up on most of it, but just want to sort of emphasise the fact that this gives us yet another very, very good or potential opportunity of increasing the income to the authority. There's a lot of opportunities here that will add to the existing portfolio that is already giving us an income towards supplying frontline services that we wouldn't have if we just relied on government grants. So you know, this is very much to be welcomed.
Anything else anybody else wants to add, Jane?
I would just briefly like to say I think it's a tribute to the officers of this council that we're getting these sort of opportunities and the confidence that companies have in us.
Yeah. I think that's a solid point. Actually, the reputation of Monmouthshire now stretches far wider than just Wales.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a credit to the key people in this room who've helped make that happen. Any officers want to? Oh, sorry, Richard, come on.
Yeah, just wanted to say, really proud to see this report, and it just marks us out yet again as a local authority that is the home of innovation in Wales, that we're a local authority that's not afraid to push the boundaries of what's possible, and we're not just going to sit here and complain that we get the worst funding of any local authority in the country, we're going to go out there and find sources of funding elsewhere to enable us to make decisions such as the one we were talking a little bit earlier about how we can not only protect but enhance the services we offer to the residents of Monmouthshire.
Any officers want to add anything? No? Okay, right, I've moved the I've talked us through recommendations earlier, so I'll move them on block. So the recommendations are as in 2 through 2.1 to 2.14. All in favour? Thank you very much. Next item, I'm going to be moving to the end of the agenda. That's the enterprise achieving balance and strengthening the front line. So we can do that at the end, and officers then who may be affected can leave. Okay, so we'll skip that one and we'll move straight on to the Monmouthshire Local Development Plan Revised Affordable Housing Supplementary Planning Guidance. Bob.
Yeah, thank you. First thing to point out is we've had quite a lot of reports about the emerging LDP in the last few meetings. This is not about that at all. This is about the existing LD and the adopted local development plan that is now running. And what we found is that the supplementary guidance, which is there in terms of affordable or affordable housing, has not been working as we would have wished. And therefore it is an opportune moment to revise that guidance and to make it more practical, and so that's what this report is doing. The main changes you will find in paragraph 3.4, and you can see the first one is about section 2, the data has been updated. Section 3, data has been updated, and then it comes on to section 4A, and one of the problems we've had is that developers come along and they, having bought a site, they then come and they will spend a considerable amount of time arguing about the viability of that site and the fact that the amount of affordable housing which we're looking for is means the site is non-viable. Now that takes a considerable amount of time for officers to be entering into those negotiations, and inevitably there are occasions when we have to settle for a lower level of affordable housing than we would have wished. So what we're trying to do here is to ensure that it is the responsibility of developers to make absolutely certain before they come and purchase the land that they know what the requirements are for affordable housing, and they don't then come and start negotiating on that basis in the beginning. If in fact then there is a need to bring the district valuer in, as there often is, then that cost will fall upon the developer. Moves on to other sections which are being suggested for pragmatic reasons that we change. Single barn conversions. Now we have found that single barn conversions are not coming forward in the way that we might have expected them to. In fact, there is a backlog of applications because the financial burden coming on one barn conversion is so great that they're not being moved forward. There is an existing exemption for those who are undertaking self-build projects, and actually this means that for self-build projects they don't pay anything anyway for one barn conversion. So what we're suggesting is that we make exempt any single barn conversions. It'll save officers a huge amount of time in the discussions they have with developers. Then there's an issue of commercial conversions above shops, for instance. We know that there is a lot of accommodation which could be used for a domestic use, which is lying vacant, a lot of it above our retail shops, and we would like to bring that into use. Yet the current rules would say that that would be subject to affordable housing contributions as well. We think that that is not right where we're talking about 1 to 4 units. And so we're suggesting that in those cases, they will be exempt from making financial contributions as well. And the same thing goes in terms of listed buildings. Very expensive conversion of listing buildings. And so the suggestion being that 1 to 4 units will be exempt from making financial contributions. This has already been out to consultation, and the consultation responses have come back with only minor suggestions for amendments to that. And the planning committee has also looked at this, and it comes now to us, leader, for final approval. Not sure if, where's Mark? There he is. Mark, do you want to say anything?
Only really briefly, if you don't mind, Leader and Councillor Greenland, to add the other changes, the actual amount we'll be asking for on these small schemes, the way that's calculated has changed. So we would actually be asking for a smaller amount. But at the moment, as Councillor Greenland alluded to, we're spending a lot of time arguing about big amounts and getting nothing. The new calculation we believe will get us lots of agreements of less money, but we'll add up to a bigger pot also.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, anybody? Phil?
Yes, thank you, Leader. This will get rid of an awful lot of frustrations in the planning committee too. We're constantly looking to achieve our affordable housing targets, and arguments about viability come back all of the time, and it's simply because they've been coming at the end rather than at the beginning, or in a place where they were never going to be coming forward at all. So there's been an incredible amount of frustration within the planning committee at these arguments being put forward all the time. This will get rid of that, and I welcome it. It's a good move.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, right, I'll take us to recommendations 2122 to note the consultation feedback and the proposed responses, and to adopt the revised affordable housing supplementary planning guidance in connection with the adopted Monmouthshire local development plan. All in favour of that? Okay, thank you very much. Take a mark. Okay, let's move on to the heading's wrong for this, but it's it should be the month 2.
It's month 2, yeah.
Month 2 report, not revenue and capital outturn statement. Phil.
Yes, thank you, Leader, and yes, thanks for pointing that out there. The heading is Revenue and Capital Monitoring 2018-19 outturn statement, but it is in fact the first monitoring of the year, covering the first 2 months, and that usually throws up a potential overspend, and we do an awful lot of work throughout the year. Officers work very hard in trying to contain that, and I'll go on to that in a minute. So the purpose of this report is to provide the information to members based on the position as we see it after that first period, and to send it out to select committees for them to have good scrutiny of it. The net revenue forecast for the current financial year, based on that early period, is that there's likely to be a deficit of some 2.4 million, and we've got an evolving recovery plan necessary to return a balanced position prior to the end of March 2020 if everything goes according to plan, and of course we'll do everything we can to make sure it does. In 3.2, it's quite evident there in the third column where the main pressures lie: children's services, There's stuff within the Children and Young People Directorate, pressures in tourism life and culture in Mon Life. So there's quite a few areas there that are causing us some concern. So this outturn forecast is a significant deficit, and as such, senior leadership team are currently considering their actions to resolve that situation. The pressure areas remain, as I said, additional learning needs, children's services, passenger transport, car parking and non-life activities. So the authority continues to bear down on non-essential spend, continues to scrutinise vacant posts as they arise, and ongoing efforts are being made to recover the current overspend position. The outturn variance 2.4 million equates closely to the full extent of the children's services pressure of 2.3 million, and discussions with my opposite numbers in just about every authority in Wales. Everybody's got the same problem. In fact, it's not just Wales, is it? It's throughout the UK. The Welsh government's have, or the Welsh Centre for Public Policy, have issued a publication called At the Tipping Point, and you know we are all as authorities really suffering very, very badly, and particularly in recent times in the demand for social care. We've got pressures. We've always had demographic pressures. We've certainly got them now. A marked increase in the number of looked after children. There's a major impact of wage inflation and an increased complexity of care. So senior officers and cabinet members of the authority are working closely with the Welsh Local Government Association and other authorities to provide evidence to Welsh Government to highlight the extent and severity of pressures faced, and to lobby Welsh Government not just for a fairer local government settlement, but also to consider further in-year funding directed towards acute pressures being faced in social care and schools in particular. And as I said earlier, that's not just here, and it's been widely reported in the media. It seems to be on the news just about every evening about the problems that everybody's facing. In considering their response to that financial forecast, senior management have already identified around £960,000 worth of changes, which will help bring that 2.4 million potential overspend down, with about 500,000 or so related to capitalising existing revenue expenditure rather than affecting frontline service provision. And you'll recall that we did that in the last budget round as well. It's also worthy of note that with the Ealing ruling, as it's known, there is a claim that we can make, a significant one-off claim with regards to VAT on certain supplies of leisure services, and we'll certainly pursue in that, because if that comes in, that will make a significant difference to that particular problem. But of course, it doesn't make it go away because it's a one-off. In 3.13, you can see there that the forecasts over the last years have been deficit. 2016-17 was the largest of them in the past. So this 2004 really does bring home the project that with increasingly reducing settlements and the additional pressures that we're facing, it certainly is a pretty difficult period that we're going into at the moment. So that shows the extent of the forecast, leader, and I'll let it go out to scrutiny now for members to have a good look at it.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Yeah, like I said, it's got to go through the scrutiny round. But it is concerning that in the first quarter, first 2 months, we're seeing projected deficits, and we know you highlighted the key issues there, and colleagues around Wales sharing the same sorts of issues, and I'm pleased that Vaughan Gethin and has commissioned his own review into local government pressures, instead of us having to try and tell in what they are. He's coming out to find out for himself. And I know that won't help things much this year. Might help Wales government's thinking for next time around. Yeah, some challenges, but I'm pleased to note there's some well, obviously I knew there was work underway to make sure that can be pulled back in by future reporting dates as well, so we can see how progress is happening.
We'll have a look after the 7 month period and see how we're getting on.
Okay, colleagues. Okay. Yeah,
I just wanted to flag up one thing that only impacts slightly, perhaps has slight revenue implications. But I would say I was disappointed at the Welsh Government announcement recently that they were putting money into a pilot project for holiday hunger only in 13 local authorities in Wales. I don't know why they think holiday hunger is just an issue in 13 of the 22 council areas, but that I thought that was really disappointing. I appreciate it's only a pilot, but you know that we do have significant pockets of poverty in the local authority, and I'm disappointed that our young people won't be able to benefit from some of that.
No, I think we were all a bit shocked to see that, and other colleague leaders were, because I think we yet to understand the rationale for deciding how it should have been divvied out, but it sadly showed us again, felt like we've been done to. So I think there'll be deeper conversations around that throughout the WLJ family as well. Okay. We've been challenged quite heavily on social justice in this authority recently. Where's the social justice in that? So yeah, I think some deep conversations to be had around that, and a lot of other things around funding and distribution, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just seems quite unfair, and I appreciate it's not just Monmouthshire. I know that Newport and Caerphilly were left out as well, so there were other Gwent authorities that missed out.
They were really upset.
And all three of us have significant pockets of poverty, and those children should be entitled to a fair deal.
Yeah, it's only a small amount of money, but it's the principle around it. I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every report we bring has a quality impact assessment. Where's the quality impact assessment in this decision?
Yeah. Anyway, we'll pursue that one in other forums, I'm sure. Okay, so is there anything you want to add, Pete?
No, just I guess to reinforce those earlier points made about clearly, as would be expected by yourself, leader, and cabinet, the work that's ongoing in, I guess, recovery plans to arrest the current situation. Phil's touched on that, but clearly the work is ongoing and as described in the report.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Okay. So the recommendations are, I won't read through all of those. Like I say, it's going around through the select committee, but so we take the recommendations on block 2 little 1 through 2 little 4. All in favour? Thank you. Okay, on to section 106, education contributions concerning Gilwen Primary. Richard John.
Thank you very much. One of the first decisions this new administration took after the election in 2017 was to approve £250,000 section 106 spending as investment into Gilwen Primary School. This was to improve safeguarding arrangements at the school, to improve educational support and also staff welfare. I visited the school recently with the head teacher and saw the impact that investment has had, and it's really impressive and has made a significant improvement not only to staff well-being but to the pupil experience there as well. So that money came from 2 new estates in the Gilwen area, Tmara and Kai Meldon, and there's just over £90,000 remaining of that section 106 funding. Gilwen Primary School is a popular and well-performing school, and as a result it is frequently oversubscribed. On top of that, we're now looking at the strong possibility of additional development in or close to the Gilwen catchment area. So we've been in conversation with the school about how we could use this investment to improve the environment for teaching and learning in the school, and also to prepare for potential future growth. So we're proposing to make some investment of using that £90,000 of Section 106 money that we will look to top up as a local authority from money we received as part of the Welsh Government's capital funding grant for schools maintenance. That was a grant I explained about at the last full council earlier this month. And I explained that we would be looking to spend a significant amount of that grant at Gilwyn Primary School to improve the teaching and learning environment, specifically in the foundation phase part of the school. As I mentioned, the school is very popular, and at some point in the future we may be looking at bringing forward proposals to increase the capacity of the school formally. But that's something we can look at in the future as the local development plan develops.
Okay, well, good news story for Gilwyn. It's a cracking school, and it's ready for that increased investment. Colleagues, anybody want to add? Yep, yeah, of course you would.
Can I just say that as one of the ward members, I really welcome this, and Gilwyn School does have a very good reputation. It's got an extremely committed board of governors as well, and a very active PTA, and they've worked very hard to make improvements to the school, and I think that this offer will really help the foundation phase, so I really welcome it.
Yeah, good. Okay, right, well, won't dwell too long on that one then, it's straightforward. So recommendation, approve the expenditure of the remaining capital Section 106 education contributions on improvements to the foundation phase area of Gilwyn Primary. All in favour? Thank you. And we're on to a similar report, Richard, again, and that's for contributions concerning Ysgol Cymraeg y Fenni.
Yeah, so this is another school in the Abergavenny area that is increasingly popular with families, not just in Abergavenny, obviously, as our currently our only Welsh medium school in the north of the county, although we're looking to change that in the future. It is popular. It's a school that currently has capacity for 257 pupils. We're expecting those numbers to the pupil roll there to increase to 244 from September, and 26 people in the Maithrin. It's a school that has been expanding its numbers over many years. In line with our Welsh in Education strategic plan, we propose to increase the capacity permanently from to a two-form entry primary school, moving on to the site of Derry View, in line with our Band B proposal, which is to create an all-through school on the site of King Henry VIII, incorporating both King Henry VIII and Derry View primary school. So Ysgol y Fenni would move into the Derry View site, which would enable its numbers to increase to 420. So while we're mindful that Ysgol Cymraeg y Fenni will only be on its current site for a few more years, we recognise that there are capacity issues at the moment. So we're proposing to increase their capacity to 317 with a double classroom porta cabin on site. So this is proposing to use some Section 106 money, which again we will top up as a local authority through our Welsh Government capital grant, and we will use that fund to increase the capacity of the school.
Okay.
Recognising that we don't think it would necessarily be a good investment to build extensions onto a building that we recognise the school will only be in for a few more years. But this should address those capacity issues in the short term before we progress to Ysgol y Fenni moving on to a new fit for purpose site.
Yeah, I can see the rationale, and I mean, I know we've moved away from using dementables, but I think there's a case for this. And I suppose it's actually could make a case. We're at that time of where we're having to look at future planning for places, what with an emerging LDP and different things like that. And I suppose the challenge which we might have made was, should we be purchasing instead of leasing that, just in case we needed any temporary expansion in any other school after 5 years, when perhaps an LDP was starting to embed and we were in the process of looking at our future school organisation. You know, because I noticed it's, you know, it's a fair leasing cost over the 5-year period. You know, had we done an options appraisal around that? I suspect we had. But, perhaps, I don't know,
Yeah, we did do an options appraisal, and it was quite significantly more expensive, but it's certainly an option that we can explore further if we feel that additional investment is worthwhile. So we've gone with the 5-year lease at the moment, but we can certainly look at.
I think the key thing for me is that, you know, the LDP officers around the LDP will be cited on school organisational growth, as will and team B, and there needs to be some point where those mesh together and work starts to accommodate. And I don't know if there may be a need. Maybe now we just go and lease again if we needed to do that. I'm just conscious they're only demountables are something we never want to go back to, really, doing more than, I mean, they're fantastic. The new demountables are fantastic. You wouldn't know any different than we saw in Monmouth Common with the whole school built from them virtually. But it's something we obviously don't want to be moving back into. But you know, they can satisfy that growth need when it arises. But yeah, so I wouldn't want a lot of time going into looking at it, Matt. I just wondered if that options appraisal had been done. Yeah.
What do you call a significant increase?
Just trying to locate the costs now, so
I'll ask if there's another question we're looking at. Anybody else? Tough, Matt. Yeah. I'm not expecting you just to suddenly find that there and then. But
if we pick that up outside, and
if
it were to be
anywhere near comparable, then no. And I'm just assuming an option appraisal was done and it didn't stack up.
It wasn't.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. Okay. Anybody else want to add anything to that? No. Okay, right. But isn't it brilliant though that how Welsh Medium is growing in the north of county, that we're able to provide almost a two class entry? You know, it's amazing.
And of course now considering a second Welsh Medium school in the north of the county, albeit in the Monmouth area.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, the recommendation then is that 2.1, approve the proposed expenditure of capital section 106 education contributions to increase the teaching and learning environment at Ysgol Cymraeg Efenni. All in favour of that? Thank you. Okay, I'll take the last but one report then, the Welsh Church Fund Working Group, and this is for us to adopt the schedule of applications awarded, or rather the grants awarded for the applications. The list of them there, I think all of those are recommendations, none of them deferment. Nothing more to say really. Has anybody got any issues with these? No, so we're all in favour of these. Thank you very much. That's great. Okay, well, that brings us on to the last report, which will be the Francis report. So if I can invite anybody who might feel they have an interest, or what, Paul, at your discretion, Francis, your discretion, who ought to go or not.
In fact, everybody can go. Apart from Francis, teacher myself.
Okay.
Well, knock yourself out.
Thank you, everybody. Francis got us that. Okay, well, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm only going to say very little actually, and because obviously this is Francis's report and her restructuring. It'd be stupid of me trying to talk to this, and better for you to tell us actually what you're proposing. It seems to absolutely stack up on the report, the face of the report, and I know we've had some insights from you before, but can I hand over to you then on this, Frances?
Thank you, Leader. Been with Monmouthshire County Council nearly a year now. Time has flown, hasn't it? Yeah, nearly a year. So I was saying to colleagues earlier, it was about this time last year, I was coming in and picking up my laptop. It's absolutely flown by. So it has taken me some time to actually come forward and present this to Cabinet, but it was one of those things that I don't think it was really appropriate to have a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to reorganising the structure within the department across the existing heads of service, but it was something that was quite obvious to me quite early on from my appointment, and this report has been prepared for Cabinet to consider today in terms of looking at the roles and responsibilities of the existing heads of service that are within my team and within the structure. It's looking to seek approval from yourselves to reorganise this, better reflecting some of the service and project demands. And if you just think about the other reports that have been on the agenda of Cabinet today, it starts to give you a flavour of the direction of travel that we're taking within the portfolio and within enterprise, because all of those areas that we've touched on this afternoon all sit within this portfolio. The Directorate plays a pivotal role in supporting the wider aspirations, not only of the organisation, but of the wider community. It is multifaceted, it's got many varied objectives. We cover both frontline functions and frontline municipal service delivery, right the way through from your waste and recycling, your highways maintenance, through to some of the core strategic functions of the organisation as well. Through the past year, one of the key things that I've been doing is working with the teams to identify areas that need investment, where I have got capacity issues across the services, and the report sets some of those out within the report. Section 3.9 of the report highlights some of the demands that's informed the proposal that I'm putting forward to you today. What I'm looking to do within this report is utilise the existing senior management structure that I have in place at the moment, and one of the key things that we're looking to do is identify the opportunity for succession planning within the department and looking at development of growth of the existing heads of service that I have. Each of the heads of service in turn will look at their structure upon the consideration of this report, because there will need to be realignment of functions within each of those service areas. So I anticipate either individual Cabinet members or Cabinet itself considering further restructures as we come forward. So as set out in the report, Leader, the recommendations are set out for your consideration this afternoon, and then we'll bring forward separate reports after this as and when required.
Thanks, Frances. And yeah, it doesn't seem like a year, and I mean, but it's been a lot happening through that year, and yes, and so welcome the report. I suppose in theory, I mean, it's out of courtesy bringing it to us, because I mean, I don't suppose you actually, because it's within budget, you don't even need to bring it to us, but I thank you for doing so, and I don't know if there's any need for us to see that only for information the other changes you're making. I haven't got any problems with what you're talking about at all. Yeah, Jane.
Thank you very much indeed for the report. Can I just ask that when all the structures are in place, would it be possible for us to have an organisation chart with telephone numbers on the hub, so that we can all be totally familiar with who we need to go to?
I think that'd be really useful, actually, because the enterprise portfolio has brought together enterprise operations, is very, very broad, and it's one of the comments that lots of people make to me, is it'd be really useful just to understand what we do, who we are, and who sits in our different service areas. So yes, I'll definitely do that for you.
Can I echo that? Because, and I've said this again and again and again and again and again. When I first came here, we had, I'm not asking you to replicate this, but we used to have a directory which was so easy to follow that you just found a directorate, and names may change in there, but you knew roughly where you were ringing, and it was so easy to find things. That was so useful. Just to have a phone directory is not a lot of help to any member, because you've got to find the name and then try to track what department they're in. Wouldn't it be far easier if you could search by department? And that, you know, I'm sure it wouldn't be above our, you know, capabilities to design an online directory and place map or whatever, which can just help us all. Even me, I mean, I've been here a long time, but so many people change, so many things change, don't know who to get hold of sometimes in the right place. So I don't know if that's possible, but I set it as a task.
I'm smiling, Nita, because one of our now ex-colleagues retired last week after 48 years service. Yeah. And she gave me a directory from Gwent County Council days dating back to 1992. And I have to concede, it was very easy to remember how the organisation was.
Yeah.
That hurts me to say, but it was.
Yeah.
So we've been tasked.
I think it's possible. We don't want it in paper form, just so we can access it easily. That'd be great.
Can I just add, Lida, your comment about France's need to bring this is absolutely right. You know, as a cabinet and as a council, you've always been clear that you expect officers to deliver, and you give us the space to organise in that way. But I think Francis is right when you refer to para 3.9. This as much reminds you of the policy agenda that Francis is currently taking forward, and by gosh, what an agenda it really is. You know, a local development plan, an absolute desire to get into town centre, work perhaps more than we've been for a little while, and transport is and general transportation infrastructure. It's not something that ever goes away, but you know, it really is with us now, isn't it? All over the county. Not just in the south, but all over the county. And I think to give Frances a chance, a fighting chance of delivering on your corporate plan objectives, I think she has been right just to take that moment and ask herself, have I got what I got in the right places? And I think it's a very mature response not to come here looking for growth, because I think it's an absolute expected, you know, it's a realization that we just don't have that available at the moment. So it really is an outstanding effort to get as much from what she has as things she can.
I mean, this is the new structure is using existing officers, so there's no going to the market for any new posts or anything.
Not within the senior structure, no. Within the layers underneath there are posts identified.
Is that how? Is it through the layers which bring the saving of the 8,000?
Yeah. So within it, we're looking to utilise capitalisation of some of the posts in order to free up some of the revenue costs, which enables us to restructure.
Yeah, no, that's a bit which wasn't clear how you could make a revenue saving out of the same stuff.
And is it worth just offering one example? It's not, you know, a more important example than any other, but it is a good one. If we return to transportation infrastructure, and if we recognise the need, the issues that surround the beautiful town Chepstow, if we are going to come up with a transport solution, well, we are going to come up with a transport solution. We'll be looking to others to fund it. It's not reasonable, given the scale of that task, to expect an officer or a cadre of officers to do that in the odd hour.
No.
You know, when you're looking at something that might be 50, 100, 150 million pounds and incorporate tarmac, rail, active travel, and having the capability for Francis to deploy somebody at that, say that is what you're doing, do it. It is an absolute necessity, I think, at this point in time. And that's the use of capitalisation to give us that capability.
I see that. Anybody want to ask Francis anything? No? Okay. Well, so the recommendations then are listed in two, to approve the investment into new posts to support service demands and funding strategy described within the report at Appendix 2 and 3, to approve the new enterprise SMT structure and roles and responsibilities, which are at Appendix 1B, and that the Chief Officer for Enterprise proceed with the implementation of the new structures and make any amendments that might become apparent during the process in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Resources. All in favour of that? Thank you very much. Thank you, Francis. And that brings the meeting pretty well to a close. Can I, we'll probably have a bit of a few weeks off now. So anybody who's having a well-earned summer break, I hope you have a good one. You certainly won't see me through August, I'm afraid. But unless you really, really need me, it needs to be a good reason. So can I wish you all a good summer holiday. Meeting closed.